Shalom Tiferet alumni. This is Rabbi Rosner coming to you from Ramat Beit Shemesh from Tiferet, and I was asked to give you a wonderful little short shiur in honor of the upcoming Chag in Purim. I hope you're all doing well, all of our amazing alumni who are going to be hearing this shiur, and it's really a zchut for me to record this shiur for you here today. So, let me give you the general idea what I'm going to talk about in this brief shiur. So, Megillat Esther has so many amazing themes and topics and inspiring points to talk about. So, I'm just going to select one. Specifically, I'd like to talk about two very important, very chashuv Jewish role models, two great Jewish women who seem to have a connection to each other. And I'm speaking, obviously, when you're talking about Purim, we're talking about Esther HaMalka, of course, the heroine of the Megillah, the heroine of the Purim story. And I think I'd like to make a comparison between Esther HaMalka and Sarah Imenu. What's the connection between these two women? So the truth is, I think there's a lot of comparisons, a lot of similarities between these two great Jewish role models, but I'm just going to talk about one thing that I think is very, very interesting. And of course, as you know me, I like to talk about math and numbers. So the connection between Sarah Imenu and Esther HaMalka that I'd like to talk about is a number, specifically 127. The number 127 is kind of an irregular number. You wouldn't expect it to appear too much in anything, but it does appear twice in Tanakh. Specifically, we know that the number 127 is the amount of years that Sarah Imenu lived. Right at the beginning of Parshat Chayei Sarah, it says that Sarah lived 100 shana ve'esrim shana ve'sheva shanim, 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. And there's very famous discussions in Midrashim all about that number 127. And in the very first pasuk of Megillat Esther, it talks about the Persian Empire. And it says that the Persian Empire encompassed 127 medinot, 127 nations. It says, Sheva ve'esrim u'me'a medina, 7 and 20 and 100 countries. What's the connection between the 127 years of Sarah Imenu's life and the 127 nations in the Persian Empire? Well, the truth is, when you look at it first, I even think the question is even more strange, because I think the contrast between the two usages of the number 127 is quite sharp. First, let's look at the Purim story. Why do we hear the number 127 in terms of the nations? Well, when you even look at that very pasuk, and it's describing the vastness of the Persian Empire, it's so big, it's so huge. It's Mehodu v'Yad Kush, Sheva ve'esrim u'me'a medina, 7 countries and 20 countries and 100 countries. The number just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And clearly the number 127 there comes to stress how absolutely enormous the Persian Empire is. And that, of course, is very important in the continuation story, as I'll get into later. So again, in Megillat Esther, the number 127 comes to emphasize the hugeness of the Persian Empire and all the various many nations that were included in that empire. How about the number 127 in terms of the life of Sarah Imenu? What is the meaning, what is the symbolism of the number 127 in that sense? Well, I think in some ways it actually goes in the opposite direction. Of course, to us, in 2018, 127 seems to be a very, very long life, bli ayin hara. However, when we look through Sefer Breshit, 127 was actually one of the shorter lifespans of our Avot and Himahot. We know that Avram Avinu, for example, lived to the age 175. Yitzchak Avinu lived to the age 180. So Sarah Imenu died, compared to her husband and her son, quite young. Why? And not only that, but I think that when we look at the life of Sarah Imenu, we see that many things in her life were a little bit rushed. She didn't have enough time to complete her mission. What was, after all, Sarah Imenu's main mission in life? And we see that very clearly from beginning to end, that Sarah Imenu's main mission was to ensure the continuity of the Jewish people. Sarah and Abraham had worked hard to develop a very strong basis for the Jewish people, and they spread their message. But what Sarah Imenu was mainly concerned about, that message wouldn't just be a one-time thing with two great tzaddikim, that it would continue and persist for generations to come. And that was why she was so desperate to have a child, to continue the message of Avram Avinu. But we know that Sarah was an akara for much of her life. She didn't have children until she was 90, and she tried before that to have a sort of surrogate child with Hagar. Didn't work out so well. And then, when she finally has a child, she has one child, Yitzhak Avinu, and even then, very difficult. When he's 37, he is put on the Akedah, almost killed, and Sarah Imenu dies at age 127. And I would also stress this, that I think that Sarah Imenu didn't yet get to finish her mission. If the end of her mission was ensuring the continuity of the Jewish people, we know that when Sarah died, Yitzhak was still not married. Yitzhak had still not produced the next generation. And in fact, Avram Avinu, as soon as Sarah, right after Sarah dies, that's his next mission. That's his next goal. Let's get Yitzhak married. Let's make sure that there's continuity. So Sarah Imenu worked hard to accomplish a certain goal, a certain achievement in her life, didn't really get to the finish line. So this is interesting then, because 127 in terms of Megillat Esther and Purim symbolizes a very big number of so many different countries and nations that were included in the Persian Empire. And 127 in the story of Sarah Imenu symbolizes the brevity of her life, how short it was and how she tried so hard to accomplish that very, very important goal in her lifetime. So what is it? Is 127 a big number or a short number? And the answer maybe is this. Maybe, I'll suggest, that 127 symbolizes pushing oneself to overcome challenges. In the case of Esther HaMalka, it meant saving the Jews who were scattered everywhere. Am mefuzar u'mefurad bikol ha'amim. They were scattered all over the various nations. And finding a salvation, finding a way to save them all was a tremendously difficult task, which Esther HaMalka really accomplished. But it was a very big challenge, and a challenge that probably would have scared off most people. And yet Esther HaMalka had the courage and the wisdom to overcome that challenge and save the Jews in all of the 127 nations. Sarah Imenu had a different type of challenge, a very different challenge. She had to ensure the survival of the Jewish people also, but not in a national sense, in the sense of saving all the Jews throughout an empire. She just had to keep the family going. And for her, 127 was a different obstacle. It was an obstacle of brevity. It was an obstacle of a life that was too short and that was cut off too short, and a very short time span in which to accomplish her goal. But again, Sarah Imenu kept her eyes on the prize and worked hard towards her goal. And ultimately, even though she didn't see it in her lifetime, she was successful. So 127 for these two tremendous women, Sarah Imenu and Esther HaMalka, really represents working hard, overcoming obstacles, and not being afraid to push forward even when things look difficult and things look challenging. And what a great lesson that is for our lifetime. We also face many challenges in our life, in school, in work, at home, families, everywhere really. And we have to remember to keep our eyes on the prize also. Just as both Sarah Imenu and Esther HaMalka, their main goal was to ensure the continuity of the Jewish people, that the Jewish people would remain alive and healthy and filled with Yirat Shamayim and Avodat Hashem. They both had that same goal. And despite the obstacles, they pushed forward towards that goal. So too, we too in our lives have to remember these two amazing role models and push forward as well. And even though we too in our lives might have 127 obstacles, doesn't matter. We should overcome them all, and we should never be discouraged or disgruntled. We should push forward in every ways in our lives and make sure to follow these two great Jewish women in ensuring the continuity and the success of Klal Yisrael. I wish you all a Purim Sameach. May you enjoy fulfilling all of the mitzvot Hayom, and we see you soon here back in Eretz Yisrael, visiting us or permanently. B'mheira v'yameinu.